YouTube, we have a major upset alert on our hands, and I mean 4 of them within the past 2 days of the NBA playoffs. All 4 series. In round 2 of the semifinals, the team that was down in the series ended up winning the game against their opponent. I've never seen anything like this before. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Thursday night. Cavaliers upset the heavily favored Celtics 118-94 on Boston's home floor. No rhyme intended. The Mavericks upset the Thunder 119-110 on the Thunder's home floor. Moving over to Friday night, May 10th, the Indiana Pacers beat the New York Knicks 111-106, and the Denver Nuggets end up beating the Minnesota Timberwolves and saving their season 117-90. This is absolutely wild, and I want to talk about in this video, how did all these upsets happen? Who exactly were the standout stars of these 4 games that led to them saving their team's season? And what do these series even look like moving forward now that we have the results that we do with these 4 big-time season-saving wins by these 4 teams in the semifinals? And to be clear, when I'm talking about upsets, I'm not talking about, the Vegas odds or, the betting odds or anything like that. I'm talking about these 4 teams were all down in their series, and they went on to win these games, effectively saving their seasons, Let's start with the Thursday night games and move on to the Friday night games, starting with Cleveland versus Boston, where Cleveland would win 118-94. Now, I actually didn't watch this full game, but I did watch the first half, and it looked like Boston had total control over this game for most of the first half, And then all of a sudden, Cleveland creeps up, has a monster third quarter, winning the quarter 36-24, and just blowing Boston off the floor 28-16 in the fourth quarter. What is going on with Boston? Similar thing happened in the Miami Heat series, and then Boston would go on to win. This has got to be pretty disappointing if you're a Boston fan. Cleveland's no slouch, and they deserve a lot of credit for this, but Boston didn't play great basketball in the second half of this game, and there's really no reason for that. There's no reason for them to lose this game, but let's give the credit where it's due. The Cleveland Cavaliers, and mostly just Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell was sensational in this game, stunning the Boston crowd with 29 points on 10 of 19 shooting and 5 of 7 from 3, chipping in 7 rebounds and 8 assists in 39 minutes of action. Evan Mobley also deserves a ton of credit in this game. He was the big difference maker for the Cavaliers, in my opinion. Evan Mobley played really, really great basketball from start to finish. 21 points, 9 of 15 shooting from the field, 1 of 2 from 3, which is a good sign. When Evan Mobley knocks down those threes at a good rate, man, he is so dynamic. Really adds a level to his game that you love to see if you're Cleveland. He did have 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, and 2 blocks. I mentioned this in the last video about the Cavs, but like I said in the last video, the Cavs had 5 turnovers in their loss in game 1 to the Celtics, and in this game only having 3 turnovers. I mean, what kind of offensive wizardry is JB Bickerstaff implementing here in Cleveland? I mean, this is insane. 3 turnovers against Boston? That's insane, To be fair, Boston only had 7, but if you're on the road and, already at a talent deficit, turning the ball over 3 times is really, really going to help you and put you in position to win a game like that against a hostile crowd. And Boston is a smothering defense. They have a great defense, and, I know Porzingis is out, and that really affects their defense, but you got to give a lot of props to Cleveland for taking care of the basketball, It's also worth noting Caris LeVert played really, really good, probably his best game of the playoffs thus far. He has been a little bit disappointing offensively in these playoffs, but he chipped in 21 points, 9 of 17 from the field. Got to give a lot of credit to the Cavs. On Boston's side of the floor, I want to be honest with you guys, they just shot the ball poorly. Jason Tatum did have 25 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, but shot the ball poorly. 7 of 17 from the field, did make 9 out of 11 free throws. I don't think he was necessarily the problem in this game, but he certainly wasn't the solution. Drew Holiday, 4 points on 2 of 7 shooting. Got to be better. I know he's a defensive specialist these days, but listen, you need more than 4 points. Derek White shot poorly, 1 of 8 from 3, 3 of 11. Very uncharacteristic of Derek White. He's a super efficient shooter and always really a guy you can count on, but wasn't there that night. Jaylen Brown, 7 of 17 from the field, 0 of 6 from 3 with 19 total points. Seeing a trend here in Boston. They didn't shoot the ball well that night, and Cleveland took advantage. They didn't turn the ball over. They did all they could on their end of the floor to make sure Boston didn't run away with it, and a lot of credit to Cleveland, now making this a really interesting series, going back 1-1 on their home floor for 2 straight games. Moving on to the Dallas Mavericks versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is a game I could have expected. I would expect Dallas to play a lot better after their disappointing game 1 performance where they lost, but you go into a hostile OKC crowd and you absolutely dominate offensively, particularly from the 3-point line, shooting 48% from the game from the 3-point line as a team. 18 of 37 made threes. That is insane. The big standout in this game being PJ Washington. PJ shot 11 of 18 from the field, 7 of 11 from 3, scoring 29 points, adding 11 rebounds and 4 assists. This was a superstar type performance from PJ Washington from that forward position. I mean, these are the type of numbers you'd expect to see from a Kevin Durant type player. Big credit to PJ Washington making a big difference with the Mavs adding him at the trade deadline. Luka played really well, really turned his game around. He's been struggling a little bit from the field and the 3-point line in the playoffs and shot the ball really well that night. 29 points, 11 of 21 from the field, 5 of 8 from 3, adding 10 rebounds, 7 assists. Kyrie Irving was pretty lackluster, but it didn't so much matter in this game. Only scored 9 points, did have 11 assists, but listen, Tim Hardaway shot well, Josh Green shot well. You know, when these role players step up like that, Dallas is a really, really tough team to stop because that's who you want shooting the ball. You want Josh Green, you want PJ Washington, you want Derek Jones, you want Tim Hardaway shooting the ball and not Luka Doncic or Kyrie Irving. Those guys hit all their shots that night, and that was the difference in this game. You know what I mean? Luka and Kyrie can do all they want, but if those guys aren't making their open shots, which they're going to get pretty consistently, Dallas is less of a threat than they would be, and those guys stepped up. Superstar type production from PJ Washington. Big props to him and the Mavericks. Now, the game that was really, really interesting to me, two of them, mostly the Friday night games, because both these teams went in the game down 2-0 in this series, the Pacers and the Nuggets. Let's talk about the Pacers for a second. Pacers win 111-106, and I think we all owe Tyrese Haliburton an apology. You know, I wasn't calling him a fraud, but I was certainly disappointed in his game 1 performance, only scoring 6 points. Tyrese Haliburton came out in game 2 and game 3, scoring 30 plus both times, and this game really, really being the difference in the game. Obviously, Haliburton scored 35 points, had 4 rebounds and 7 assists, but he shot 14 of 26 from the field, 6 of 16 from 3, also had 2 steals and a block. This was a masterful performance from Tyrese Haliburton, the point god 2.0. I owe you an apology. You know, I wasn't calling you a fraud. A lot of people were, but I will say that game 1 performance was abysmal, and you came out, dominated this game, and in game 2 you played insanely well. So big props to Tyrese. We all owe him an apology as the NBA community. He did everything he was supposed to and more, ended up winning the game. Now, Miles Turner has been really, really good in this series, and he was no different that night. 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks, shooting over 50% from the field. Really, really great from him. Pascal Siakam was, you know, back to his playoff leading form after he led the playoffs in points per game. You know, not quite that great. You know, it wasn't like a 40 point or anything like that, but 26 points, 7 rebounds, 7 of 9 from the free throw line, got to the line quite a bit, and shot the ball really, really well. This is what you love to see if you're a Pacers fan. Everyone playing like they're supposed to, filling their role at home and protecting home floor, saving their season. Now going 2 games to 1 with a chance to tie it on their home floor. Game 4 will be the most important of the series, and you got to win that game if you're Indiana. Like I said, sorry Tyrese, you shut me up and you shut everyone else up. Good for you, man. You deserve it. Moving on to Denver versus the Timberwolves. This was the game everyone had their eyes on, as, you know, Denver, the reigning champ, and for what most people thought were the best team in the NBA, you know, really, really showing up in this game on the road. They were down 2-0. They lost both home games in this series against Minnesota. Now go into Minnesota against a hostile crowd, down 2-0, and Jokic hasn't looked like himself, you know, in those first 2 games, and everyone was looking like, what are the Nuggets going to look like tonight? Are they going to look like the Nuggets? Or are they going to look like how they've looked the past 2 games? Well, they looked like the champs that they were. 117-90 in this game. This game has been a really back and forth series in terms of like blowouts, and, you know, the game 1 was close. Game 2, Denver got played off of the floor at home after already being down 1-0, and, you know, now they come in Minnesota and just do the same thing to them. You know, let's talk about Denver's turnaround, why it happened. To me, Denver really figured out, you know, something to do about this defense, because it did not seem to be a big factor that night. Jokic being the MVP that we all know him to be, scoring 24 points, 14 rebounds, and 9 assists on 10 of 18 shooting, adding 3 steals and 3 blocks to that. Who's not good at defense? What are the haters going to say now? You know what I mean? Michael Porter Jr. having an awesome game. 6 of 10 from the field, 4 of 5 from 3, 21 points and 4 rebounds. Aaron Gordon playing amazing basketball, and Jamal Murray finally looking like himself again, just like Jokic, adding 24 points to go with Jokic's 24, 5 assists, 3 steals, 11 of 21 from the field, and 2 of 6 from 3. Everyone did their job in this game with Denver, you know, and Minnesota really, really struggled offensively in this game, I will say. Just flat out, you know, they had 14 turnovers in this game. Anthony Edwards had 5, Mike Conley had 3, Karl Anthony Towns had 3, Rudy Gobert was back, but only played 27 minutes, couldn't, you know, get anything done offensively. Defensively, you know, they just didn't look as good, and this is really troubling if you're Minnesota. You know, now you get blown out at home just like you did at Denver, and you're probably feeling a lot less confident as you did a few days ago. You really got to figure out something to do if you're Minnesota about this series, and Denver looks like they're back, man. So props to Denver. Let's talk about now really briefly, and then we'll end it off. What do I foresee happening in this series moving forward now that we have the information that we have and all these 4 upsets happening? So the Cleveland-Boston series, nothing really changes for me. You know, Boston has a definite, you know, propensity to take their opponents not as seriously as they should, you know what I mean? And I think this is a case of that here. Boston comes out a lot of times and they're just the better team 99% of the time, and I see that as no different in this series. No offense to Cleveland, but they're just not on Boston's level. They might steal a game, and Boston has a lot of, you know, like I said, tendencies to come out and not take their opponent seriously, take them lightly. You know, we're the better team type of thing. We don't even have to try that hard. That's kind of what happened in the second half of that game, in my opinion. You know, they need to get over that if they're going to be NBA NBA champions, because that is not something NBA champions do ever. They don't take their opponents lightly. They come out and play the same amount of energy as they would any other game or every game of the playoffs. You know, this isn't the regular season in Detroit or Washington. You can't come out and underestimate your opponent and go 50%. You know, that's just not how the playoffs are going to work. And regardless of the talent deficit, man, you better try your best, especially when you did it with Miami, and that's fine. They didn't have their best player, but Cleveland isn't Miami. They're a much better team than Miami, and they can really hurt you in a big way, especially if Jared Allen comes back in this series. We know Porzingis going to be out the entire series probably, so Boston's got to come out in game 3 in Cleveland and really give it their all, or at least close to it, man, because, you know, effort is one thing you can control. Sometimes you hear the make or miss league thing, and that's true. You know, sometimes you get unlucky, you just miss your shots. That happens, right? That is not what happened here, and that is not what's happening in Boston a lot of times when they lose. They come out, they underestimate their opponents. Oh, we got 7 games in this series. We're better than Cleveland. Okay, both of those things are true, but you better be careful because you don't want to go down 2-1 to a team on their home floor. That's just a really, really bad thing for Boston, and especially without their big difference maker and X factor this season, Kristaps Porzingis, being out there. So you better be careful, man. They better come out and handle their business in game 3. And if they do, I see them, winning this series probably in 6 or 5 games still. That cannot happen again for Boston. As far as the Oklahoma City Thunder versus Dallas, I, predicted originally this would be a slugfest back and forth. It's all going to depend on how Luka and Kyrie play individually, from game to game. As long as Luka plays the way he did, I think you got a really good chance to win each game. Now you go back to Dallas tied 1-1, all that good stuff, right? But the big thing for Dallas is, you can't count on PJ Washington to play like that every game. PJ is a really great role player and definitely deserves his props for, being the difference maker in that game. To me, that is not a thing that you can count on night to night. It's not a super reliable formula to win if you're Dallas. Kyrie's got to shoot better and play better in game 3 at home. Role players got to keep making their shots, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to Luka and Kyrie. And like I said, you cannot count on that type of production from the role players. You got to find other ways to win against a team like OKC. Still expect the series to go 6 or 7 games. Still expect Dallas to win. Moving on to the Knicks and Pacers. I still expect the Knicks to win this series, maybe a little bit quicker than I thought originally. I expected this series to be a 7-game series, and it still totally could be. It's all going to depend on game 4, how Indiana comes out in that game. Listen, I still believe what I said. Indiana's a really bad matchup for New York, but New York's a better team. You know what I mean? They just have whatever that it factor is, man. They got it. And I'm saying, great job by Haliburton. If he plays like this every game, it's going to be tough to beat him, but still expect the Knicks to come out on top in this series. Nothing really changes for me there. I think it'll still be a close series, but New York comes out on top. And as far as Denver and Minnesota, this is the really tough one. This has been much more volatile than I expected. I expect all these games to be close and, super kind of low scoring, and that's just not the case. So like I said, with the Indiana and New York series, this is going to determine everything. The game 4 that happens, on Minnesota's home floor, Denver can steal that game. I think they win the series in 6 or 7. Minnesota's really, really got to be much better in game 4 and not allow what happened in game 3 to happen again. Still taking Denver in a close series, man. I really, really am. But, if Minnesota wins game 4, I don't expect a, 3-1 comeback to happen. So it's all going to depend on game 4, but remember that it could be important. Hopefully you guys really enjoyed the video, man. Make sure you guys drop a like if you did. It really helps out the channel. I just wanted to talk about this today because I found it really important. Everyone who was up in the series, actually lost the game. So a lot of, a couple of these teams were at home. So really, really interesting stuff, 4 basically upsets. Like I said, I don't know the Vegas odds or who was favored on the money line or anything like that. I don't bet or anything like that. So don't hold me accountable there. You can, but that's not what this video is about. I'm not saying upset in terms of betting. I'm saying upset in terms of team that was up in the series lost the game 4 straight times. Insane, right? Sorry for no upload yesterday. I really do apologize. I hate doing that to you guys and to myself. No excuse for that. I really just straight up didn't prepare as well as I should have for yesterday, and that's the reason I couldn't upload. I am working on a 2-part series, so make sure you guys stick around for that, man. We're gonna have a really, really good 2-part series about a topic that you guys know very well, and that is maybe the most discussed topic across the entire NBA community for the past decade. Not gonna spoil what it is, but make sure you guys subscribe and stick around for that if you are curious, because I'm really working hard on it. I'm writing a script thoroughly, and that's another reason I couldn't upload yesterday, is I'm really, really working hard on this 2-part series. So make sure you guys subscribe if you don't want to miss it. It's gonna be amazing. I'm really, really proud of it so far. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day today, and hopefully your favorite team wins their next NBA game. Thank you guys for all the support and love. Really, really appreciate you guys. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. I will catch you guys in the next one. This is boy D Haven, as always. Peace.